Joker, 2019, by Todd Phillips. The story happens in Gotham City, 1981. Arthur Speck, Joaquin Phoenix, functions as a clown for hire for a company called Ha-Ha's. He struggles with severe depression personally but finds some form of optimism in performing for others and trying to make people laugh. He is entrusted with publicizing a store by moving and waving a sign around. On one such event, the sign gets grabbed by a gathering of troublemaker youngsters, forcing Arthur to pursue them into a back street. They crush the sign against his face and continue to kick him while he's down hard-heartedly. Arthur visits a social laborer for his drug, as well as his continuous psychological wellness issues. On the transport ride home, a little youngster checks Arthur out. He causes senseless faces that to entertain the kid, however his mom advises Arthur to let him be. Arthur starts to chuckle madly and wildly. At the point when the mother questions him, he gives her a card that makes sense of that he has a state of mind that makes him chuckle the way that he does. Arthur gets back to a skyscraper condo project, where he resides with his debilitated mother, Penny, Frances Conroy. After supper, they sit and watch a television syndicated program with Murray Franklin, Robert De Niro. Arthur envisions himself being on the show and standing out. In his dream, Arthur charms the crowd and Murray by letting them know that he deals with his mom. Murray connects with Arthur and welcomes him up in front of an audience before everybody, where they share a familial hug. At his jobs, Arthur is given a firearm for insurance by his colleague Randall, Glenn Fleshler, after he catches wind of the robbing occurrence. Arthur is both hesitant and eager to get such a gift as guns are prohibited working, however before long finds his certainty becoming subsequent to getting the weapon. Notwithstanding, not long after this, he is stood up to by his cold and cruel chief, who condemns him for losing the sign and removes the expense of it from his compensation. Arthur meets and becomes captivated by one of his neighbors, a single parent named Sophie Drummond, Zazie Beetz. She addresses him amiably about relating issues that he can connect with. In any case, while attempting to establish a connection with her, he seems off-kilter and bizarre around her. At a certain point, he goes through his day following her. Afterward, she stops by his condo and inquires as to whether he was following her, and he concedes that he was, however she doesn't appear to be put not quite right by it. He welcomes her to a stand-up parody show that he is performing at. Arthur goes to the parody club for his presentation. His anxiety consumes him and, as a survival strategy, inadvertently winds up giggling so hard that he can scarcely talk. Arthur later goes to a kid's medical clinic to engage them as a comedian. He carried his weapon with him, and it drops out on the floor. Arthur's manager later reprimanded him for this. Arthur argues briefly possibility, however his manager rejects and flames him on the spot. On the tram train ride home from Haas in full comedian getup, Arthur spots three alcoholic youthful money road types working for Wayne Undertakings irritating a lady. Arthur begins snickering inadvertently and draws the consideration of the men, while the lady astutely escapes from that vehicle. The men approach Arthur and fake him and is chuckling before they begin to beat him. Arthur retaliates justifiably, yet they group up, and persistently beat him to the floor. Having had enough, Arthur then takes out his firearm and fires two of them dead with good reason prior to following the last person out of the train and killing him on the steps. In shock over what he recently did, Arthur withdraws into a close-by open men's room. After a snapshot of frenzied consideration, he finds a power ascending inside him, and he starts to move without help from anyone else. The following day, Arthur clears out his storage at Haas yet not prior to facing Randall about double-crossing him and breaking the time-punching machine. He then, at that point, leaves, feeling cheerful and free. News reports show comedian agitators fighting through the city and unleashing inconvenience, denouncing the higher favorite. Arthur sees that he has coincidentally made this and starts to see his actual potential, which makes him truly enchanted. Arthur goes to Wayne Estate, where he meets youthful Bruce Wayne, Dante Pereira Olson. Subsequent to playing out an enchanted stunt for Bruce, he sticks his hands through the entryway and powers Bruce to grin. In any case, Alfred, Douglas Hodge, comes to mediate and advise Arthur to leave. Arthur then gets hold of himself and escapes the Wayne premises. The following day, two police investigators, Burke, Shea Wiggum, and Garrity, Bill Camp, go to Arthur's loft to address him on the Metro murders because of the word that the suspect was wearing jokester makeup, and they realize Arthur lost his employment before that day. Arthur denies any inclusion and gets the analyst to leave. Not long later, Penny becomes sick and is hospitalized. Sophie sits by Arthur as he watches out for his mom. In the medical clinic, Arthur sees that Murray's network program is playing a clasp from his stand-up daily practice, yet he is harmed to see that Murray just played it to taunt Arthur. Arthur later gets a call from a rep for Murray's show. He is welcome to show up as a visitor, which Arthur hesitantly acknowledges. Arthur returns home and breaks into Sophie's loft. She sees him and is alarmed, requesting that he leave for her girl. Arthur inquires as to whether she has at any point had a genuinely horrendous day, to which she answers that she doesn't have any acquaintance with him. Through this, it is uncovered that each and every other second highlighting Sophie was simply in Arthur's mind. A messed up and baffled Arthur apologizes for his interruption and lets Sophie be, stomping out of her condo. Arthur begins to prepare for his appearance on Murray's show and paints his face white. He is visited in his loft by Randall and another previous colleague, a midget named Gary Lee Gill. They give sympathies after they catch wind of Penny's passing. However, at that point Randall starts referencing Burke and Garrity going to their lofts to interrogate them concerning the tram murders. Arthur understands that Randall is just looking for a method for involving Arthur to cover his own butt and afterward snaps, mercilessly cutting Randall 2 times in the face prior to crushing his head against the wall. A panicked Gary questions Arthur's deeds and asks to be given up. Arthur consents to before energetically terrifying him as a trick. Gary attempts to fix the lock on Arthur's entryway, however can't because of his level. He requests that Arthur open the entryway for him, to which Arthur promptly concurs, stopping once to say thanks to Gary for being the main individual in his life who was good to him. Arthur then, at that point, colors his hair green, puts on full jokester makeup, and wears a burgundy suit. He then, at that point, moves down the flights of stairs, completely embracing his madness and lighthearted life. Burke and Garrity find Arthur moving in the road and move in to capture him. Arthur runs, and they pursue him into the tram train where many other Gotham residents are dressed like comedians in the wake of being motivated by the homicides. Arthur conceals his face with a comedian cover, which he takes from a nonconformist, and coincidentally begins a fight in the train vehicles. As the analysts seek after Arthur, one jokester disrupts the general flow, and Burke inadvertently shoots him dead when they battle with his firearm. The jokesters haul the analysts out of the metro and begin beating them steadily, permitting Arthur to move away, moving flawlessly through the police powers which swarm the region. At the television slot, Arthur meets Murray and his representative quality, Mark Maron. Before he goes on, Arthur requests that Murray present him as Joker, since Murray alluded to him as such while playing his clasp. And afterward he moves out into the spotlight. Arthur goes out as the show starts. He ungracefully makes Murray a wisecrack, which he tracks down, entertaining for its incorrigible sense of humor, however no other individual does. In the wake of being defied with this, Arthur go on by confessing to the Metro murders. Murray and the crowd gradually understand that Arthur is significant. Arthur contends that the crowd just focuses on the casualties since Thomas Wayne represented them, yet any other individual like Arthur would be disregarded and strolled over. Murray and the crowd become angrier with Arthur, however he does as well. What do you get when you cross an insane recluse with a general public that leaves him and deals with him like waste? He asks, just for Murray to take a stab at stopping him prior to requiring the police. A rankled Arthur then shouts, "You get what you fucking merit," prior to blowing Murray's head off before everybody. The crowd takes off in dread, and the insight about the homicide promptly raises a ruckus around town. Arthur then giggles, really without precedent for his life. Gotham is presently invaded by revolting residents dressed as comedians in the wake of catching wind of what Arthur did. The Waynes pass on a cinema to track down the confusion in the roads. Thomas takes his better half Martha, Carrie Louise Putrello, and Bruce into a rear entryway, yet one jokester follows them and tells Thomas he is getting what he merits utilizing the zinger that Arthur utilized on the Murray Franklin show. With that, he shoots Thomas and Martha dead before Bruce. In the meantime, Arthur has been captured and is being taken by the police. Arthur peers through the window and chuckles merrily as he sees the annihilation and confusion he has caused. All at once, the jokesters in an emergency vehicle run into the vehicle, killing the police and liberating Arthur, who is harmed and oblivious. At the point when he stirs, Arthur winds up encompassed by a horde of cheering mobsters in jokester veils. The agitators then, at that point, root for Arthur as he remains on a vehicle and embraces their deference, since he has gained the appreciation he has long wanted. He moves to their cheering and afterward stops, observing that his nose is draining abundantly. He then spreads the blood across his upper lip and smiles prior to remaining before them, raised like a divine being. In a little while, Arthur is secured in Arkham Haven. He snickers subsequent to recounting this story and envisions a youthful Bruce remaining over his folks in the rear entryway. Understanding that he has, as it were, transformed Bruce into himself, Arthur giggles some more, finding this truly funny. A couple of moments later, Arthur then gets out of the room, abandoning a path of horrendous impressions before he is pursued around by orderlies.